Thank you for coming out this evening. See a lot of coats that I haven't seen in a few days, but it's well justified. I'm Larry Hicks. I currently serve as chairman of the school board, and I want to say once again, thank you for being here. Would like to introduce the other members of the board to you. Ms. Theresa Locke, Mr. Nikki Bull, Mrs. Tamika Vincent, Mrs. Lynn Ivy, and also on stage with us will be Miss Amy Pierce, who will be asking questions of our finalists and also sharing some additional information with you. I also want to welcome Miss Judith Jacobs. Ms. Jacobs is our finalist of the evening, and we're glad that she's with us. A lot of changes today make her principals, everyone at the central office. We had to amend our tour schedule today because of the delay of school. Everybody did a wonderful job, so I want to say thank you to everyone that had a part to play in that. Amen.
Good evening. At this time, I ask you to silence your cell phones. At the conclusion of tonight's interview, we will have a reception in the multi-purpose room. Tonight, the Ozark City Board will interview Mrs. Lee Jacobs. We will start with a short introduction and then move to questions that the school board has chosen for the finalists. Ms. Jacobs.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. To me a little bit. Is that better? Can you hear me now? All right. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate it. I do want to thank you for the hospitality. It was great today. I know we had a lot of changes, but I had a great time. Just a little background of me. I've been in education for 21 years. I grew up in Dothan. I went to school in Dothan. I work for Dothan. So that is, I've been with them for 21 years. I started off as a special ed teacher and moved into school administration, and eventually came over to the central office as an instructional coach. My goal ultimately was to go into special education. That was my background. And somehow I found my way to federal programs. Or it found me, one or the other. And started federal programs about 10 years ago. And after that, we started to restructure. So I ended up applying for assistant superintendent job for instruction and accountability, and been doing that almost 6 years. My duties have changed over the past close to 6 years. And now I do compliance and accountability. Just personal note, I've been married for going on 22 years, been together for 27 years. Met them in high school. We have two beautiful children. I have a daughter that is at Troy University with a majoring in Bachelor in Fine Arts with a focus on dance. And then my son is a 10th grader. He plays soccer, cross country, very active. So I have a athlete and a dancer, like opposites. So, but that's just a little bit about me.
Looking at our district's system-wide report card, what are the first 3 improvement actions you would take and why?
All right, so I thought when I hear this question, it's a really good question, but also I want to just answer it in 2 parts if you don't mind. If I only look at your report card and that's it, just your state and federal report card, I can see over the past 3 years you have increased, you're making good improvements, especially in grad rate, CCR, and your chronic absenteeism. However, I've noticed in your past year, your proficiency and your growth have declined slightly. When you kind of dig into that just a little bit and you look at your subgroups, I do see your African Americans and your special ed subpopulation is where you are declining in your proficiency. I've noticed that it was just slightly low. It dropped by 3 points. Not in any way that that's not abnormal. It happens quite a bit, but your growth had dropped. If I only based it on your report card, then I would look at probably your tier 1 instruction, what's going on in there, analyze what's happening in your classrooms, curriculum alignment. Then I would go straight into your intervention systems and processes that you have. And then ultimately go into progress monitoring. What does that look like? What do you use and how are you using that data once you receive it? But I'll be honest with you, measuring you on a report card is not right. It's only a piece of the whole picture that's going on in your classrooms. I know publicly we are judged on report cards, but that is only a sliver of what's happening in your classrooms. What I really would like to do, and you will see in my first year plan, is come in and do a full in-depth instructional audit. That way we go not just the surface level of data, but go into the classrooms, truly look at a deep dive of what's happening in your instructional practices. What are your procedures that are going on? How do you go about them? What are the policies that you have in the progression of your students from K to 12? Once you kind of do that in the first 90 days, which would encumber quite a bit of different things, we would need to set priorities at that point. What are we seeing from that instructional audit? And that's where you really would get your 3 areas that you're asking for in your focus. And the next section of it would be the next 90 days after that. We would work on implementation, any strategies that we need to put in place. And then lastly, monitor and assess where we are in that implementation.
Describe your understanding of the financial status of our district and share examples of your past involvement in budget development and ongoing fiscal management.
When I looked into some of your finances, you have financial reports as well as you had a summary of that came from AASB. You have about a little over 4 months in reserve, which is excellent. I mean, that's good stewards of your funds. That's not a lot of people have that. So that already states that you're in a pretty good area. I did notice you got a little debt, but y'all done some capital improvements. Obviously, the field out there is significant. So, I mean, that's going to come with any time you do capital improvements as well. But overall, I noticed your revenue balances are really well. That means you're not depending on one fund source to actually float your daily staffing and your expenses. You're using everything that you possibly have coming through, which makes you even better stewards of your funds. Now, that's what I noticed of your funds. My experience in budgeting, so 10 years of federal programs. Where I'm from, I run the biggest federal programs budget in the Southeast. It's over, in all the funds I use, about $20 million runs through my department. I oversee Title I, II, III, IV, N&D, which is neglected and delinquent, homeless, school improvement. That's just the federal part that I am actually part of the programming as well as the budgeting part of it. Then Perkins CTE grants, special ed grants, IDEA preschool, all of those as well run through me. The individuals that run the programming of it, I work with them, but I oversee the budget process, the expenditures, and the compliance component. In addition to that, I also oversee state funds. That would be your ARI, OMI, like for your math coaches and your reading coaches. I also do OSR, that's your pre-K. We have 10 pre-K units where I'm at. In addition, you have state nursing, you have summer school, math intervention, all of your assessment funding, all of those funds come through me. So I do federal as well as state and special grants. Approximately, well, like I said, it was $20 million, but it is a significant amount of funds that come through us in that area. What I wanted to kind of stress on is one of the things that I do also is I'm over the annual budgeting process for our district. So when your 20-day count comes out in October, I take that information and I start calculating the foundational units that are going to be staffed in each school, communicate that with the principals, which we have a total of 19 sites. But in what you can prepare for in the future, starting in January, I start creating what I call a budget workbook for them. In there, I give them guidance on how to budget. Now, I find it really important for principals to be part of their budgeting process as well as having ownership in it. One of the things I've found, I've been doing this for about 4 or 5 years, running the annual budget. When principals are not part of their budget, they cannot own it, nor can they defend it to their staff. So when your staff comes to you as a principal and say, why are you cutting or why can't we have this? They need to be able to explain that. If you eliminate them from the process, they can't do that. So I have found it's excellent to have them part of that. In this workbook, I give them guidance. I tell them how much I project in their Title I allocation and how much they can spend out of there, how many people they can approximately, fund out of that amount. I also do that for your reading coaches and your math coaches. I work with the special ed department on staffing the SPED. How many, based off your case management, what do you need for SPED teachers? What do you need for instructional support aides? And then we look at their funding and how we're going to place IDEA with them. I also look at local units too. We try our best to stay no more than 10 units in K through 12. So we've been very successful in doing that. The RAISE Act is a new fund source that came out last year. And in there you have SPED, you have EL, and you have poverty. I also oversee that and I staff with those funds as well. So in that guidance I give to them, they see that. They also have a tab that they work on. They can see how their staff is done right now so they can reference back. And then what I call is a sandbox. In the sandbox, they actually manipulate and show me how they're going to budget for their staffing. They come in, we'll start this next week. They come in one by one with the district team and they present to us, this is what I need. This is how many teachers I need per content. This is how many teachers I need per grade level. This is why I need that. And when I do that, then I need a nurse and I need a behavior specialist, or I need a parent involvement, or I need a clerk, or I need 5 aides. And they have to show me first, how are you going to pay for it? So now sometimes we have to tweak that, of course. We don't always come in with the best plan, but the collaboration starts then between them and the district office on how we're going to staff your school. And then we move into the HR part of it, which comes in later in March and April, where we actually come in and start talking about the who. And so I sit down with the HR director and the principal, and we go through each staff member on each school and who's going to go where. And then at that time, I'm actually placing individuals in the budget, because your title money can only go so far. So you need to try to stretch it as best you can. So I get all of that ready by the end of May to give to the CSFO so she can build the salaries and do her salary matrix.
As superintendent, describe how you would lead principals, teachers, and staff in maintaining a strong, fair, and consistent discipline system. Then explain measures you would put into place to monitor the system's effectiveness to ensure uniform application across the district.
I think it's really important that teachers feel supported, but students also understand the expectations that are set for them. So I would say the first thing I'd look at is your policies and procedures district-wide on behavior, and are they consistent, and are we implementing them consistently? What's the expectation that we are setting for our children, and not just them, but what's the expectation with your staff as well and your leaders? one of the biggest issues with discipline is that you're not consistent. And so with that, I would also start looking at your behavioral interventions. What do you have in place? What resources do you have for them? What is the mental health services that you have in addition to that? What are some of the do you have behavior interventionists in your building that can help support those needs as well? I also find the other part of it is just good building climate and culture in your schools. If your teachers want to be there and they want to work for you, then they're going to be happy in what they do, and they're going to project that into their children too. And children are going to want to be there. And when children want to be there, there's your student engagement. They're engaged in class, they're wanting to be part of it, and then your discipline starts to minimize as you go through. So ultimately, make sure things are consistent, make sure you have policies and procedures in place and expectations. Ensure that you have the proper behavioral interventions set to support for the ones that need it, and then ultimately create a culture of learning that everyone wants to be part of.
In the areas of student achievement, staff retention, and overall district performance, what specific actions would you take as superintendent to strengthen those areas?
In my leadership transition plan for the first year, the very first part is listening, learning, and evaluating. So my first step would start with that, not just with the instructional audit that I spoke of, but also creating community listening sessions, that we would need to go to surrounding communities. You could house them at the schools, but also if you had rec centers that we have, and this is where parents and community leaders could come in and truly have an open conversation about their concerns. I would be part of that as well as facilitate that conversation. That data would be collected as well. Then also start doing that with your staff. Have support staff as well as certified staff, and have some listening sessions with them so you can really understand what they think the strengths and the challenges are for the district. By taking all of that, that is part of that evaluation process coming in. I think after that, then we start looking at the focus areas and the priorities for your staff. What kind of PD did they need? What support did they need? What are we gaining by looking at all the data in the first 90 days? Also, what is your community expecting of you? What do they want from your school system? What kind of school do they want? I think these are questions we need to ask them and we need to get answers for before we can focus on what are the details that we're going to put action items with. And then ultimately, we want to implement it and progress monitor. And when I say progress monitor, I know some people just think of that as like, okay, well, that's like tier 2 and tier 3. You need to progress monitor everything you do. You need to have accountability steps in everything you do. So you have checkpoints and say, are we doing the right thing? Is it working? If it's not working, how do we adjust and how do we make a new plan? Sometimes that's the part where we fall on, is that we're not following up and adjusting as we go.
When hiring for an administrative position, what specific criteria and forms of evidence would you rely on to ensure the selection of qualified applicants who will be the best long-term fit for the school system's culture, goals, and students?
Okay. Well, I have partaken in lots of interviews, and I will say the 3 things that I look at when I want a leader is, are you an instructional leader? Can you build relationships in your building? Can you build a culture and climate that people want to come and work for you? And then, is your vision aligned with the district's vision? If we don't have the same vision, then you're not going to implement what our goals are. So those are the 3 skills I look for when I'm looking for a leader. Now, I do believe in a tiered interview process. And so let me just back up. To do that, one of the things is when you hire a principal in your building, people want to be part of that and they want to have voice. And one of the times I find that that's really beneficial is when you're going through an interview process. So the first thing is you do a screener of all the applicants. You have a rubric. You give them certain points based off, are you internal, external? Do you have an EDS, a doctorate? Do you have how many years? So on. You narrow that down. Then you form your interview committee. You need to have leadership from the district level, but you also need some staff from your school, teachers, counselors, instructional coach, maybe an AP, someone that's looking at it from that point of view. The best thing about having a committee do it is that you have different points of view. They all look at it very differently when they're interviewing someone, but also those are the individuals who are going to get to have voice a little bit about it. So once you do that, the superintendent would select the questions, and there would be a rubric that would be scored. The committee would interview and they would score. The top 2 candidates at that time, or 3, would go to the superintendent for an individual one-on-one interview. And in that interview, that would be where I would really look at what type of instructional leader are you, what kind of relationship builder are you, and what is your vision for the school. But I think it's really important that there's people part of the process as well.
How would you identify problems with staff morale and turnover? And what immediate and long-term strategies would you put in place to reverse the trend?
So one of the things I've already talked about is in the first 90 days was the listening and learning and evaluating. Part of that is your listening sessions that you're going to do with your staff to really hone in on that. Also, I think another part of it is your leaders, your principals, and your APs setting one-on-one meetings with them and having conversations about the things that they see. That's a challenge. I find that principals are a lot more willing to talk to you when it's one-on-one than it is when you're in a principal meeting. They're not going to really divulge all of that. So I find that that's a good way to truly get them to open up. It also starts your building process and your relationship with them. So once you gain all of that, I'm going to be honest, I think some of the long-term strategies would be that you need to have a consistent communication plan with your staff and your leaders. So starting with leaders, I would set probably monthly, maybe twice a month, one-on-one meetings with each one of your principals, where I do instructional walkthroughs with them. I sit down and have conversations about things and challenges. It also gives me a chance to coach them and help them through the challenges they have. Being an administrator is very lonely. It is not a job that anybody goes and says, I want lots of friends, all right? So they're there because they have to make hard decisions. So in that, sometimes they don't have an outlet. So as a superintendent, you need to be able to open that dialogue for them. For your staff, I find it very beneficial to have a staff engagement committee where they meet quarterly. This would be selected individuals from throughout the whole district. They would sit on this and they would be able to have voice and input on things that are going on in the district. For instance, one of the things I hear from teachers quite a bit is, well, I didn't even know we were doing that. Nobody communicated that with me. Well, and there's a breakdown in communication. If you have a staff engagement committee, what they could do is when you're thinking about putting in a new initiative or a new procedure or a policy or something, you could float it to them and get their input. They're going to look at it from a different point of view. They may even see some speed bumps that you didn't really pay attention to at the beginning and get some input. But they also are going to be your biggest cheerleaders, because if they support it and they see the work that's going into it, they feel ownership in it. They're going to go back to their schools and they're going to promote it well. And those are the individuals that are going to probably be your leaders within your building of teachers and staff. So staff engagement would be a long-term strategy that I would use. One-on-one meetings with your principals would be another one. And then I would like to, I'm sure you have principals meetings, okay? And that's not unusual. Something we started this year with principals meetings that I found very beneficial is it used to be that it's just very compliance driven. You know, you just get up there and we're going to go through every little detail of the day of what you can and can't do. So at the beginning of the school year, I worked with principals about what do you want from a principals meeting? If you're going to come spend a whole day with us over here, what do you need for us to do better at? So they wanted more team building, they want professional development, and they want open dialogue. So what we did is that we threw out all the compliance components of the principals meeting. There's an instructional, don't get me wrong, we're going to do that, but we do that as a separate meeting, as a data meeting where they're going through all of that. But in these principal meetings, we have done, and I've really enjoyed it, is that we meet at one place, we get on a bus, and we go to someone's school that day. We do instructional walkthroughs together as a district leadership and all the school leadership. We then, which is really great because you don't always get a chance to go see your coworkers' place and see what they're doing. Then we come back together and we actually do like a 3-2-1 activity, like name some things that you like, name some things you saw. Give me a question of how do you do that? How did you implement this? It really establishes a good dialogue among your district and your school administrators. At that point, we usually pair that with some type of professional development for them. And at the end of it, it is a free zone of no judgment. At this, we're going to open the floor. If anybody here that has questions, I need to understand more about what's going on. And there's always politics in education, unfortunately, and there's things that are happening in your community. And as administrators, you don't always get to speak freely about those things. This allows us that opportunity as leaders to do that. And I have found that it's very beneficial for them. They became closer with each other. They respect each other more. Another thing that we have done, well, let me back up. The other thing about that is there's always seems to be a divide between school and central office. And that type of meeting has been able to bridge that. The other thing we have done is started community service together, which I absolutely love. In November, we did the food bank. All 19 sites plus all the district leaders got together. We went there, we served, we packed, and we delivered food. We loaded cars, and it let our community see us in a different way. I mean, they're used to seeing us at the schools loading the cars and the buses, but not helping in that way. So that's something I think it really allowed us as central office and schools to get together more and be together, but also to serve our children in a different way.
Working with a variety of school systems and community groups is part of the superintendent's responsibilities. Provide examples of how you have encountered opposition as an administrator and how you have dealt with those situations.
Well, as most of you know, where I come from, we did a huge restructuring a few years ago. So we decided, let's not just do one school, let's just do a whole bunch of schools at one time. So we made 2 high schools into one. We closed some middle schools down and opened up one massive middle school. We closed some some magnet schools and opened up a new magnet school. So with that comes lots of controversy and very unhappy people. Right? So I will say one of the steps that we did is we did open up for communication with the parents. We allowed them to come almost like open mic night. It was a very long night. We did it multiple times where they could share their concerns, but it also gave the opportunity for the board and the superintendent to give the why we're doing what we're doing. A lot of times they need to hear the why. And at the end of the day, you're not going to make everybody happy. All right. And you're going to be, and that's okay. But as long as we can respect each other in that way, and they could, I don't agree, but at least I have a better understanding why you're closing schools or opening schools. Another thing that we did was we allowed them to be a part of it. So when you combine 2 high schools, there's a lot of tradition that goes with Dothan High and Morphin, right? A lot of upset individuals. So we started a committee where they could develop the new colors, the song, the mascot. What does that image look like? So let them be part. We let parents, we had some students, we had community leaders, we had some business individuals all be part of it. And that did help. I'm going to say one of the biggest things is that we had to do a proof of concept. I mean, people really didn't think one high school was going to work, but it has. It's probably one of the best things that we did in our restructuring. And really the group that I thought was going to have the hardest time adjusting was the students. They were the ones that didn't skip a beat. They were perfectly fine. It was more of the adults that struggled with it. So I think part of that is just communicating, trying your best to explain to them when anytime you're doing something that could be controversial, explaining the why you're doing what you're doing and being present, being part of it, letting them have voice in it, let them be part of it as well.
Do you believe non-academic participation, such as fine arts, athletics, and student organizations, contribute to the overall development of students? If so, describe ways you would prioritize, support, and increase engagement in these programs throughout the school system.
I am a huge supporter of fine arts and athletics and just clubs and extracurricular. You can't have instruction without extracurricular, and you really can't have extracurricular without instruction. The two go together. Now, one is not more important. You shouldn't sacrifice one for the other, okay? But to get students to school, you have to have a hook. So they have to find something that they're interested in. If that's a CTE course, if it's being part of the choir or the marching band or art classes or music classes, or if it's that on the soccer team or the baseball team or et cetera, they need to feel like they're part of something. As humans, we all want to be part of something. And then typically you want to be part of something that's bigger than yourself. If you create that environment where they want to be there, the teaching part will come easier because they want to be there. They're engaged in the classroom and they are looking at it and saying, I want to be part of this. I want to be part of this community and family. It's not just important for your students, but it's crucial for your parents and your community. It's the hook for them. They're going to show up when they see their kids are happy and their kids are part of something and they're performing and they're being in a showcase or, spotlight. Your parents will want to be part of that. So to build upon that, you've got to invest in those areas. Obviously, you've invested a lot into your football and your stadium and stuff, and it's beautiful. But if you want your fine arts program to build, you need to invest in the people to run it, the facilities to have it, and the PR communication plan that needs to happen. That's another part of it. Communication and PR is like one of the key things in getting your extracurriculars out there. You have to sell it. You have to sell it to your parents, sell it to your community, and put out a good plan for them so they can see. Sometimes people just don't even realize what you offer. As school and educators, we're not really good about like bragging on ourselves, right? We just come to work, we enjoy our job and we do our job. We don't have don't do really good about that. That's where your PR and communication plan needs to come in to help your extracurricular. That will get your participation up, that will get your parents showing, but ultimately to do it, you have to be able to support it financially and you need to invest in it. It would be what the priority of the board is and what's the priority of your community and where do they want things to go with that. I will note this, I went to your schools today and y'all have some excellent programs, you really do. Music and art is crucial and it's really important starting in your younger years. It is part of their brain development and their social and emotional development is for children of those young ages to have something to be creative. You can teach reading and math through art and music. It is crucial for their development. And so I do think if you want to build programs, you got to start them early as well.
Choose 3 adjectives to describe yourself when serving in the role of superintendent and explain your choices.
Okay, I would say number 1, collaboration. I'm a collaborative leader. I believe in a team approach. Not one person makes a team. To be honest, that is some of the best ways to implement and ensure a good working system is that you have the right people in the right place. And you have people that complement each other. We're not all strong in everything we do. You need to have people that are strong in your weaknesses and vice versa. And then you need to have open dialogue and be willing to take on people's opinions. And we don't all have to agree, but at the end of it, a collaborative leadership is, to me, the best approach. And that is very much what I instill and I approach quite a bit of my everyday world into that. The other part is I'm a systems thinker. In other words, I look at things from a bigger picture. I'm very detailed and can get into the weeds, but I really do look at things from a high level and seeing how is something going to be implemented system-wide. You look at all your systems. What do you have to do to put that in place? What are the procedures for those? What are the things that you're going to run into? Could this go bad? If it did, what would it look like? I think about every step, 3-4 steps ahead. And I think you have to, if you're going to run a district. You have to be able to see all the components. You need to understand everything and all the working wheels to the machine. And then I would say my last thing is I'm deliberate. I am very much When I make a decision, it's because I have gone through the research, I've done the evidence collecting, I'm thoughtful, I've taken perspective from others, and I look at it and I say, this is what we're gonna do. Anytime I make a decision, it is for a purpose, and it is not going in there with half of the information and being reactive. It is about looking at the big picture and what's the best for students in the district.
As a superintendent, you would need to delegate responsibilities to your team and staff. How would you describe what to delegate, and what strategies would you put in place to ensure accountability and follow through without micromanaging?
I'm definitely not a micromanager. I will tell you right now, I'm not. Like I said, I'm collaborative. I believe everybody needs to be part of it. I also look at it this way. Like I had said in one of the answers already, is leaders need to have ownership in what they do. If we're going to put them as a principal or a district leader, then we need to be able to trust that they're going to make good decisions. And we need to give them the opportunity to be a leader. If you go in and you just micromanage and do everything and you stay on top of someone like that, you're not building their skills. You're not building them as leaders. We strive that we want everybody in our system to move to the next level. If that's your teacher going into admin, if it's your school admin wanting to go into a district admin, but you don't build people by micromanaging them and holding their hands and tying them. You build them by giving them responsibility, putting in accountability measures so you have checkpoints, and then also providing support with them all the way through, coaching them from the beginning and being there to maybe not make the decision for them, but say, what do you think about this? Look at these two options. How would you approach it? Answer the question with a question, okay? A lot of times people want to come with you to a question and they want you to answer it. Put the question back on them and let them answer it. Let them think through the whole process. That is how you lead. That's how you build leaders, and you prevent from micromanaging.
When administrators, teachers, or parents come to you with concerns or complaints, how do you ensure that they feel heard and understood, even if you may not immediately agree with them?
Most people want to be heard. They want to just talk, and they want to talk about it. I think most people, when they come, they're pretty upset at that point, and so they need to just kind of calm down. You need to give them the opportunity to get to that point, let them come out with everything they want to say, and just be there as a sounding board. I think that's probably the most beneficial way to address it, when, especially if you see something that's contentious and this could be negative. But I will tell you this, something that I'm adamant on is that there is a chain of command. And so when you allow people teacher to jump straight to the superintendent without going to the proper chain of command, causes chaos. And it causes miscommunication, and it sends a message that you don't trust your leaders. So I think it's really important. If a parent had a problem, they need to go to their teacher first. Then they go to their principal. If it's still not being solved, or they don't feel like they're not being addressed the way they want to, there should be someone at the district level that handles that. And then ultimately, it would come to the superintendent as the last result. It shouldn't be the first. It should be that we put pieces and processes in place to ensure that we address people's needs along the way. But I think that's crucial. But once it did get to me, I do think the main thing is I'd listen to you, I'd take your information, and I wouldn't make a decision right there. And I actually would investigate it. I would need to go talk to all the individuals and see the side on both sides before a decision was made.
Describe your experiences managing racial issues that may have occurred with students, faculty, and/or staff.
Well, when we restructured, one of the reasons was in our middle schools, we had 4 middle schools. 2 were magnet and 2 were not, which caused a have and have not situation. Not a lot of people called it that, but that's what it was. We divided our community by doing that. it caused a lot of people to be upset when we closed our middle schools and made one. I'm gonna be honest, some of the things, I received lots of phone calls during that time. And a lot of things that I found that was beneficial is that you just call it what it is. Right? Be honest about it. If you have a racial issue, if it's not, a lot of times you're like, I don't want to be in class with those children. Well, they refer to them as behavioral children. You're really meaning something else. Just call it. Say, if you're having a racial issue, let's go ahead and get it out in the open. Let's have a conversation about it. The best way, and unfortunately, sometimes people don't know what they say is hurtful, and it needs to be identified. It needs to be addressed. I think beating around the bush and sitting there and acting like it doesn't exist is not going to be the way to approach it. Just let's get it out. Let's have good conversations. You may disagree with me at the end of the day, but that's okay. Now I know where you're from, and you know where I'm from. And I think that's some of the best ways to deal with race. Race is just one component of discrimination. And being a special ed teacher, discrimination is not something that I have ever accepted. If it's race, if it's poverty or socioeconomic status or disability. In public education, discrimination doesn't have a place, and it shouldn't be there. Because the wonderful thing about us is that we take you however you are, whatever you are, whenever you get here, and we take you here, and we get you where you need to go. So discrimination shouldn't even be a consideration, a thought, or even a process in your mind if you're going to be in public education.
Tonight, we will have an additional question for you. At the conclusion of your first year as superintendent of Ozark City Schools, how would you evaluate your success?
Well, I think I would have to, if I'm going to set a plan and I'm going to say this is my plan for the first year, then I'm going to measure myself on those plans. If I put accountability measures along the way and I put measurable goals along the way, then I would need to measure it. That means you would have to seek survey data from individuals. You would need to look at what progress have you made. And to be honest, the first year is probably not going to show it all, just because in your first year, you're not going to come in and just change everything. It's a slow progression. But I think the best part is to evaluate the plan and get input from your teachers, your staff, your principals, your community leaders, and see how they feel about what I've done the first year.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs. That does conclude the formal questions that we have for you. We would like to give you another opportunity to make any additional remarks that you would like. And also, if there's something that you need clarification from us, we would be glad to respond to that. If you'll give me 1 second to get this mic out and get seated, I will
Okay,
appreciate it.
all right, no problem. As board members, what do you foresee being areas of focus for the new superintendent coming in? Or priority areas that you want them to focus on?
My response to that would be, based on the questions we have presented you tonight, those are obviously our primary issues, concerns, that we can move forward in some of those areas and to get a feel for how you might would progress through those.
I would say 2 of our priorities would be looking at staff morale and retention and student retention, both of those areas.
I think through the last few years, we've seen a decline in enrollment or students actually leaving the system, perhaps for another county system or perhaps a private school. Are there any strategies that we might use or intervention tools that you know of that may help with this situation?
With the decline in enrollment? Well, part of that is I do think you have to be able to offer, and I think you do offer opportunities, but maybe increase some of your opportunities that you're offering to get a good communication plan on that as well. I think some of it you're going to have to climb because I know that you have an athletic component there too, and some of that you may not be able to help, okay? And unfortunately, but we need to be able to show to them what are you missing on this side of us. You know, people leave and they think things are greener on the other side, and sometimes they get over there and realize it's not what I thought it was. We need to give them the opportunity, come back, come see what we have for you, and give them those opportunities. I think that would be one way of doing it. Like I said, for building your participation with your community and your parents will also go a long way with that.
Are there any closing remarks that you would like to make, Ms. Jacobs, or any additional questions?
No, not really. I appreciate the opportunity. I've enjoyed my time and I've enjoyed meeting all of you. Some of you I got to spend a lot of time with today, so I did. And I enjoyed meeting all your principals and assistant principals, your buildings, and seeing some of the great things you're doing here. So thank you for the opportunity.
This will conclude the interview, and you can exit to the reception.